All rise.
The Kosovo Specialist Chambers is now in session.
Please be seated. Good morning and welcome back after the judicial summer recess. Court officer, can you please call the case?
Good morning, Your Honors. This is case KSC BC 2020-04, Specialist Prosecutor versus Pieter Shala.
Thank you. First of all, I kindly ask to indicate who is present today in court, starting with the Specialist Prosecutor's Office.
Good morning, Your Honors. For the prosecution today, Line Pedersen, Emma Podevan, Federica Genovesi, Gaia Pergolo, and Filippo De Minicis.
Thank you. Victims' Counsel, you have the floor.
Good morning, Your Honours. I'm Simon Laws, counsel for the victims in this case, together with my co-counsel, Maria Radziowska.
Thank you. Defense Counsel, you have the floor.
And we are here with Mr. Shala, Peter Shala, in the detention by video link. You know my two co-counsel, Mr. Awini and Mrs. Cariolo. We have a brand new one associate legal officer, Anna Arendt. She's coming from Canada. Of course, my case manager, Janeta Petravica, Juliette Hilly and Judith Kolb, evidence review assistants. Thank you very much.
I cannot hear you, Mr. Shala.
Good morning, everybody.
Paul?
Yes.
Today we start with the presentation of the evidence by Victims' Counsel, and we will hear the testimony of Ms. Karin Dune Prince and Ms. Chayenne Lozano Parra, who are both expert witnesses. Before we start with their testimony, there are two matters we have to deal with. Firstly, we will issue an oral order pertaining to the request made by Victims' Counsel on the 23rd of July 2023, filing 599, to allow the two expert witnesses to testify simultaneously in court. Victims' Counsel submits that the report was prepared by both experts acting together, with one contributing expertise in the area of psychology and the other in the field of psychiatry, and the proposed modality of testimony would thus allow the expert witness to explain their opinion with their respective complementing expertise and supplement it orally here in court, if necessary, in a way that is consistent with the methodology applied in preparation of the expert report. There was no objection raised by the Specialist Prosecutor's Office nor the defense for Mr. Shala, and we informed on Tuesday last week, the 8th of August, both Victims' Counsel and parties via email that we intended to grant this request and we would provide reasons orally in due course. Now, this is the moment. The panel considers that permitting the two expert witnesses to testify together at the same time will make the questioning and presentation of the evidence more effective, and it will avoid repetition. Accordingly, we grant the request of Victims' Counsel, as already informed last week. This concludes the panel's oral ruling. Secondly, we anticipate that by the end of the day, we will set a date and an agenda for the Defense Preparation Conference. We will seek submissions primarily from the defense, and we will also have some questions for the SPO and for Victims' Counsel on the agenda items, and we will also issue a further oral ruling. Yes, so that's the schedule for today. We can now proceed with the testimony of the expert witnesses. Ms. Prinsen and Ms. Lozano Parra will testify without in-court protective measures. However, part of their testimony may be given in private, depending if it's necessary to protect the identities of other witnesses and victims at risk on their cooperation with the specialist chambers. Victims' Counsel, I saw you standing. Is there something you would like to share with the panel?
I was going to endorse what Your Honour has said, that it will be necessary when we move on to their dealings with the individual concerned to go into private session. I'm going to do the first part, their background, etc., in public, but once we get on to dealing with their examination and their role in this case, it really has to be in private session.
Yes. Thank you. We will sit for the regular sessions of 1.5 hours with our regular breaks. Very well. Court clerk, could you please usher the witness into the courtroom? Thank you. Ms. Prinsen and Ms. Lozano Parra, welcome to the specialist chambers. Can you hear me fine, Ms. Prinsen?
Yes, I can.
Very well. And Ms. Lozano Parra?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Very well. Mr. Shala, could you hear the replies of the witnesses?
Is that
Hi.
I can only hear the interpreter. Yes, thank you.
Ms. Prinsen, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, Your Honor.
Good, good. And Mrs. Lozano Parra?
I'm fine as well. Thank you.
Very well. Good. We will start with your testimony by starting with Victims' Counsel. Before we start, I have several remarks. You are called to testify before the specialist chambers in the case of the specialist prosecutor versus Peter Shala to assist the panel to reach a verdict. First, you will have to take your solemn declaration, and after that, you will be asked questions by Victims' Counsel, by the specialist prosecutor's office sitting next to Victims' Counsel, and then by the defense counsels sitting on the other side of you. And at the end, it can be that also the judges will complement with some additional questions. Yes, I see you nodding. Before you take your solemn declaration, I will give you some guidance and some practical information for answering your questions. Yeah? As to the guidance, please listen carefully to each question. If you don't understand, feel free to have the question be put again to you. Yes? We want you to give your expertise to the best of your knowledge and to state what your findings and opinions are. Please answer the questions being put to you. Yes? If we need more clarification, follow-up questions will be asked. Regarding the practical advice for your testimony, please take note of the following. everything we say here is translated, as you know, so it is important to speak into the microphone in front of you. Speak clearly and speak at a slow pace. And what is also very important, don't speak at the same time. Yeah? It's very important to adhere to, because if not, if we have overlapping speakers, we don't have any translation. And in the same line goes my following remark, is that you should not start speaking until 5 seconds have passed before the question that has been put to you has been finalized. Because that will allow the interpreters to finalize their interpretation and for us to hear everything well, and especially also Mr. Shala. Before you speak, please identify yourself and then give the answer, because that will allow that in the transcript it is reflected who of you is giving the answer. Yeah? So it will be somewhat repetitive, but it's important. If I raise my hand, please start talking, because if I talk too, then we have overlapping speakers. So, and it could happen that we will ask you to leave the courtroom, and that can be due to the fact that we need to discuss a question that is to be put to you, and we don't want to influence you in any way. Yeah? And then lastly, if there's something you would like to share with the panel, please raise your hand if you have any need, or just let me know. Yes? Good. Lastly, you may be asked to make markings on a piece of evidence, and for this purpose you can use the device in front of you. I trust you have been explained how to use it, and I see you nodding. Have you understood all this? Yes?
Yes.
Ms. Lozano-Parra also, yes, very well. Now, I will now ask you to take your solemn declaration. We will begin with you, Ms. Prinsen. I remind you that it's an offense within the jurisdiction of the specialist chambers to give a false testimony. Have you understood that?
Yes, I have.
Good. Court clerk, can you please assist Ms. Prinsen with the solemn declaration? You have the floor.
Okay. I'm conscious of the significance of my testimony and my legal responsibility. I solemnly declare that I will perform my expert analysis conscientiously and to the best of my knowledge, and that I will state my findings and opinion accurately and completely.
Thank you, Ms. Prinsen. You are now under oath. I turn to you, Ms. Lozano-Parra. I also remind you that it is an offense within the jurisdiction of the specialist chambers to give a false testimony. Have you understood that?
Yes, I have.
Very well. Madame Court Clerk, could you assist the witness? Please, you can read out the text.
Conscious of my significance of my testimony and my legal responsibility, I solemnly declare that I will perform my expert analysis conscientiously and to the best of my knowledge, and that I will state my findings and opinion accurately and completely.
Thank you, Ms. Lozano-Parra. You are now under oath. Victims' Counsel, you have estimated 2 hours for the questioning of these witnesses. That was, however, before you made your request to have the 2 witnesses testify simultaneously. Is that estimation still correct?
I hope that it'll be rather less than that now they're giving evidence together.
Very well. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. And good morning to both of you. I'm going to start with some questions about your qualifications and experience. May I begin, please, with you, Dr. Lozano-Parra, and may we have on the screen, with Your Honour's leave, please, the CVs of the experts, which are ERN V4010045 to V4010048.
Please proceed, Madam Court Officer.
And we can see, I'm so sorry, can you just go to the top of the page? We need to come down for Dr. Zano Para's CV, I think. That's it. Thank you very much. And if we just come a little way down the page, please, Court Officer, thank you very much. I'm not going to take you through this in detail, Doctor. We have it in writing. But in summary, you studied medicine at Maastricht University and you specialized in psychiatry, did you not?
Yes, that's correct.
And you then practiced as a psychiatrist in 3 different settings from 2012 to 2020.
That's correct.
I think it's going to help the interpreters if you just pause just a little bit more than that. You'll get used to it. Did that work include diagnosing and treating people with trauma?
Yes.
And then at page 2 of your CV, we can see that you volunteered for an organization called IMO for 3 years. And if we go back to page 1, we can see that you have been working for them since October of 2020. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
Could you tell us, please, what IMO is and what it does?
Yes, IMO is the Netherlands Institute for Human Rights and Medical Assessment. So it's a non-governmental organization that contributes to human rights. And we do that by doing medico-legal assessments of alleged victims of torture or mistreatment. And we also transfer our expertise on that.
Thank you. Could you give the panel some sort of estimate of how many people you have diagnosed or treated who have suffered from trauma in the course of your career?
I think that would be in the hundreds.
Thank you. And amongst the other professional work that you have done, were you involved as a co-author of a report in another case before this court?
Yes, I was.
Thank you. May I turn then, please, to you, Mrs. Princeton, and ask you really the same questions. If we can go to your CV, which is at the beginning of this document. We can see that you studied developmental psychology at Maastricht University. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
And from 2003, Did you work across a number of settings in the field of psychology?
Yes, that is correct.
And since 2015, have you worked for IMO?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell us what your work for IMO has involved over those 8 years, please?
Over those years, I did a lot of medical forensic examinations, in which I did a psychological examination of alleged victims of torture and inhumane treatment. I peer-reviewed a lot of medical legal examinations of other colleagues. I followed schooling. We have regular intervision between our colleagues, and we try to transfer our expertise, and we go to court to explain our examinations.
Thank you. And if I ask you the same question that I asked your colleague a moment ago, if you could provide an estimate of how many people you have diagnosed or treated with PTSD or trauma, what figure would you give?
That would also be 100 or over 100 of people.
Thank you. And I think it's right that you also co-authored a report in another case here at the Kosovo Specialist Chambers. Is that also right?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. The next topic is a short one, and it's the Istanbul Protocol. Now, we have it in your report, but I wondered, Dr. Lozano-Parra, whether you would just give us, please, a very brief outline of what the Istanbul Protocol is all about.
This is Dr. Lozano-Parra speaking. So the Istanbul Protocol has been published by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, and it was first published in 2001, and there has been a renewed version in 2022, and we use that protocol, and this protocol sets out international standards on how to do a medical legal assessment when investigating alleged victims of torture or inhuman treatment.
Thank you. I'm going to move on then to the next topic, which is the report that you jointly authored in this case. Is it right that you were asked to conduct a forensic medical examination in order to do that? Were you provided with a folder containing documents from the case, and did you meet with the individual concerned examination in accordance with the Istanbul Protocol?
This is Dr. Lozano-Parra. That is correct.
Thank you. And at that stage, for the reasons that I explained, we will need to go into private session, please.
Court officer, can you bring us into private session, please?
Your Honors, we are now in private session.
Thank you. Please proceed.
With Your Honour's leave, we'll have that report on the screen, please, if we may.
Yes, please
It
proceed.
is, thank you, it is V4010023 to 4010044. Can we make it a little bit smaller so we can see the whole of the first page? Thank you. And could we go on to the final page, page 22, please? I'm going to ask you the same questions in turn, if I may, starting with you, Dr. Lozano Parra. Do you recognise this as the report that you and your colleague, Mrs. Princeton, produced?
I do.
Is that your signature at page 22?
Yes, it is.
And does this report reflect your joint findings?
Yes, it does.
Mrs. Princeton, I'm going to ask you the same questions. Do you recognise this as the report that you and your colleague, Dr. Lozano Parra, produced?
Yes, I do.
Is that your signature at page 22?
Yes.
And does this report reflect your joint findings?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. You were asked to consider 3 questions with regard to this case, and they are set out at page 2 in the report. Mrs. Princeton, are they not?
Yes, they are.
And what I'm going to ask you to help me with, both of you, is the answers to these questions, bearing in mind that the judges have your written report, so we can take some parts, I think, quite quickly. But to set the scene, Mrs. Princeton, would you help us, please, with your answer to the first question at page 2?
Victims' Counsel, shall we go to page 2 of the report, because now we're seeing the last page.
I'm so sorry. I should have said to the... Yes, we're at page 2. If we could go to page 2, please, Madam Court Officer.
Yeah.
Victims' Counsel, I will give the floor to Defense Counsel.
Thank you very much. Oh, I asked, does it need to be confidential? I think so. Not in public session, because I don't understand why. For this part, of course.
Victims' Counsel. The question from the defense is, why are we doing this part in private session?
Well, we're going to touch upon the issue of in the world for them to illustrate what they're saying with reference to this case. And so for that reason, I've asked to be in private session. But if we deal with it on the basis that this section is entirely anonymous and hypothetical, I'm happy to meet the request of my colleague?
I think that for sure question 3 and the answers to question 3 cannot be done in public. And as soon as any example with relation to the which will be given, we have to go into private. So I foresee that we have to go into private at this stage. So we can go into public, but as Victims Counsel said, I caution you to be to keep it general. We cannot go to any specificities, but if you feel the need in order to inform the panel that we should go into more detail, please make a request directly to the panel via the Victims Counsel to go into a private session. Victims Counsel, is that a way we can pursue?
Yes, I'm happy to deal with question 1. Question 2, as does question 3, inevitably takes us into the history. So I'm happy to deal with question 1 in that way. I'm afraid after that it isn't possible.
No.
May I just say that the report, however, should not be broadcast.
No, but that is a general rule
Yes,
we have
thank
here.
you.
Court officer, could you please bring us for the first question into public session?
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you. Victims Counsel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honour. So, Mrs. Princeton, if you could please help us with the answer to the first question that you were asked. What are the typical and or possible psychological consequences of arbitrary detention and ill treatment in detention? Over to you.
Yes, I can. This is expert Mrs. Princeton speaking. The Istanbul Protocol is based on a lot of scientific evidence, and we know that torture and inhumane treatment may lead to a range of physical and psychological problems and symptoms. And it has been revealed that especially the psychological symptoms can be more long-lasting than the physical ones. And we know that not all victims of inhumane treatment or torture will display psychological symptoms or physical symptoms, but it just depends on what kind of torture, and it depends on how the type of violence experienced and the context in which it happened. And what we do know is that the most common psychological symptoms that are resulting from torture and inhumane treatment are flashbacks, avoidance of memories, irritability, negative symptoms, like negative changes in thoughts and feelings, feelings of guilt, shame, moroseness, dissociation, that is when persons are not in reality anymore when they think about what happened to them. And there are a lot of more, you can read in our report, the other symptoms that are commonly seen in victims of torture. And we do know that if you look at the classifications, we see that PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder, and depression as a psychiatric diagnosis are most frequently associated with the consequences of torture and inhumane treatment. Yes.
Thank you very much. Dr. Zanapara, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
No.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to question 2. And for the reasons that we have explained, Your Honour, we do have to go into private session at this stage.
Court officer, can you bring us into private session, please?
Your Honors, we are now in private session.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Princeton, I'm going to ask you for your help, first of all, please, in relation to question 2, which I will just read for the record. Before you answer that question, I'm just going to say this. The chapter dealing specifically with this, chapter 4, runs from page 10 to 18, so it's a very substantial part of the report. And as you know, the judges have it in writing. But what I think may be useful would be to have from you a brief summary of the method and of your findings in this case. So, Mrs. Princeton, if I may ask you, please, to help us first with that.
Yes, that is okay. So our method, that is what you're asking for, we adhere the Istanbul Protocol. And that means that we have some fixed components of our psychological and psychiatric evaluation. We first of all need the history of torture and ill treatment as stated by the subject. We ask for the current psychological complaints. We ask for the post-torture history. So we want to know what happened before his accounts of the events, the post-torture after, and the pre-torture history is for before. We need his medical history, the psychiatric history. We look at substance use and misuse history, and we have an assessment of his social functioning. And then we have psychological testing. So we use questionnaires because some of the victims have difficulty to talk about their psychological symptoms. And then we have the interpretation of the findings. So we have this summary of all the psychological findings. And then in the last thing what we do is to take these findings and to make our conclusions on the question being asked.
And having followed that methodology, tell us what you learned from the subject in this examination, please. And if you would then summarize the problems that you came to the conclusion he had. And page 17, I think, is as good a place to look as any. But your account of his symptoms would be most useful.
Okay, this is Mrs. Princeton speaking. For us, it's very important to take our observations during the examination, the anamnestic data, what he tells us about the subject, about his account of the events, about his psychological symptoms, and we take the psychodiagnostic information from the questionnaires. and the psychiatric observation, and we take all that together to come to a conclusion. And what we saw is that based on all this data,
I would like to go to page 19, lines 24 and 25, because I realized that the transcript is not concrete or not complete as to what the witness has said. Madam Witness, you have also the transcript in front of you. You can see it? The transcript of the hearing.
no. Oh, now we have it, yes.
And then if you go to page 19, line 24 and 25, do you see that?
Yes. Yes, I can see that. This is Mrs. Prinsen speaking.
So you see that the transcript writes so both in, and
Yes.
then a word is lacking, as well in the observations as in an, and then again a word is lacking. And my question to you would be is what are the, could you repeat that phrase but then with, and speaking slowly with the saying what you wanted to say, or saying what you have said?
Yes, this is Mrs. Prinsen. So our findings are based on our observation of the subject, the anamnestic data, and the psychodiagnostics. And based on those findings,
if you now reread what has been put into the transcript, is that correct?
this is Mrs. Princeton speaking. I think it's almost correct. It says anamnesics, but it's anamnestic data and anamnestic the history. So it's everything the subject tells us about his history and about his symptoms.
Okay. Victims' Counsel.
Your Honor, thank you for clarifying that.
Excuse me, before we move on, just to correct something on the transcript.
Please proceed.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. At page 19, also at line 18, I think there is, I think the same word anamnestics has been transcribed as military police. This is what we thought we heard, and maybe that also should be corrected. Thank you.
I'm not sure if the expert can still go back to page 19, because I was informed that the transcript is running, but and then to line 18. You cannot go back. Okay. Yes. We have found a solution to be able to show you the transcript and the specific line, and then in that way, Ms. Princeton, you will be put in a position to rectify what has been transcribed in the transcript. Thank you, Defense Counsel. We will put on the evidence screen the page. So it was, let me see, page 19, line 18. Mm-hmm. Yes. Could you state what you said?
Yes. This is Mrs. Princeton. What I said is that it is very important to take our observations during the examination and the anamnesis, which is also his account of the events, and his psychological symptoms, and we take the psychodiagnostic information and take all that together to come to a conclusion.
Thank you, Ms. Brinson. Thank you, court officer. You can pull it down. Thank you for the solution. Victims' Counsel, you have the floor again.
Thank you very much. 18 in the report. And your chapter 5, the heading is Reliability of the Medical Picture. May I ask you, first of all, Dr. Lozano-Parra, were you in any doubt about the diagnosis that you both made?
This is Dr. Lozano-Parra speaking. No, we weren't. It was a very clear medical picture we had.
Thank you. Mrs. Princeton, may I ask you the same question, please? Were you in any doubt about the diagnosis that you both jointly made?
This is Mrs. Princeton speaking. No, I had no doubt. It was very clear.
Thank you. The next chapter that I want to deal with is the next one on this page, and it's chapter 6, and it's the causality assessment according to the Istanbul Protocol classification. And I wonder, Mrs. Princeton, if you could start with this and tell us really in summary what you're doing here in the causality assessment and what your conclusion was.
Yes, I will. This is Mrs. Princeton speaking.
topic. And over to you, Dr. Lozano Parra. Is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, this is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. It might help to explain that the gradation we use from the Istanbul Protocol, we try to explain what kind of causality there is, and we use the word typical, but maybe I can explain what kind of answers can be given. So we can say the causality is not consistent with one's account. It can be consistent with the account, highly consistent, typical, and the last one is diagnostic. So we as professionals have to see what kind of gradation we want to use for that, and I thought it might help to explain. So, yeah.
It certainly does. You're describing a scale.
Yes.
Where, if I understand you correctly, typical is one below diagnostic.
That is correct.
Thank you. I think that deals with question 2, and so we're going to move on together, if we may, to question 3, which I will again read for the record and then ask your help with. Help first of all, and before you answer the question, may I take you to the first sentence at page 19 under heading 7? Go to page 19, please.
Court officer, could you please go to page 19?
And if you come down there, thank you very much, just there is perfect. So we're in chapter 7, which is dealing with question 3. And I want to ask you, please, Doctor, for your help with the second word in the first sentence.
What we want to answer, how we want to answer this question. The fact is that this question is not really described in the Istanbul Protocol, so we cannot use our gradation to answer this question. So with this word, we wanted to state that we give our expert opinion. So we cannot, of course, state it as actual facts. It's our conclusion as we made it as a professional.
Thank you for that clarification. Would you then help us to understand how you arrived at that expert opinion and take us through chapter 7, if you would, please?
Yes, I can. This is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. I think my colleague, Mrs. Prinsen, already explained a bit about the methodology that was used. We used the same methodology in answering question 3.
Mr. Shala, you have raised your hand. I cannot.
I would have kindly asked for permission to leave for a few seconds. I needed to go to the bathroom, please.
Mr. Shala, if it's very urgent, please go.
It is, I'm afraid. Thank you very much.
We will wait till Mr. Shala is back. Welcome back, Mr. Shala.
Thank you very much.
So, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I'm sure you have seen it, we are 10 minutes to 11.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Zarapara, if we can go back, please, to your last answer. You said, and it's line 13, the heading fear, and it's on your screen. The third line down, there's a sentence that starts, the extensive loss of control experienced during the reported detention period. I want to just understand, if I may, what that loss of control involved for him and how it's linked to this fear.
Yeah. Yes, I can. This is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. During the account he gave about his detention period, he described he was totally subjected to whatever people had planned for him during his detention. So he was not able to get out of the room. he was not able to say when or where he needed anything, and he felt his life was in danger, and he was tortured, as he explained. So there was no way for him to control any of the things that happened to him. So that's what we mean by extensive loss of control.
Please do, tell us about that, please.
The subject has experienced extensive mistrust, and that has started since the alleged experiences he had in 1999. And he said he was detained because he was unjustly accused of being a traitor. And he felt very strongly that this was the reason for him to be detained and to be tortured. Predominantly men. So since then he has continuously thought that every man he sees thinks of him as a traitor or a bad person, and therefore he does not trust anyone.
Thank you. Does that complete what we need to know about mistrust before we turn to the next topic?
I think we do.
You know, I can see the time, and if that's a convenient moment.
Thank you, Victims' Counsel. Court officer, can you bring us back into public session?
Your Honors, we are back in public session.
Thank you, Court officer. We are going to break for half an hour. Thank you for now to the witnesses. I will ask Court Usher to usher you out, and then we see you back after the break at 11:30. Victims' Counsel, I see you standing. You have the floor.
Thank you. Just to say, if it helps for planning purposes, I think I have probably about 20 minutes left to go of my direct examination.
Thank you. Has the SBO an estimation of how much time they estimate they will need?
At this time, we're not planning to ask any question for the witness. Well, that changes before the end of the testimony, but I don't think so.
Thank you. For now, then we will adjourn till 11:30. Hearing is adjourned.
All rise.
Please be seated. Welcome back. I see that the SPO is in the same composition, Victims' Counsel 2, and here at the side of the defense also. Okay, thank you. Mr. Shala is here with us. Very well. We will resume with the testimony of Ms. Prinsen and Ms. Lozano Parra. So, court clerk, could you please usher the witnesses back in the courtroom? Welcome back. We will proceed with your examination. Can you hear me fine, Ms. Prinsen?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. And for you, Ms. Lozano Parra?
Yes, I can.
Very well. Mr. Shala, did you hear the interpretation? I see you nodding. For the record, interpreted as a yes. Very well. I will give the floor back to Victims' Counsel, please.
Thank you, Your Honour. May we go back, please, to page 20?
And we are in public session.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
Thank
no.
you. We need to move into private session.
Very well. Court officer, can you bring us into private session, please?
Your Honors, we are now in private session.
Very well. You have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Court Officer, if we could, Madam Court Officer, I'm so sorry. May we have page 20, please, of the report? And if we could go down the page, please, just a little bit more, another paragraph. Stop there, thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. That one, stop there, thank you.
are primarily focused on doing a medical assessment and seeing whether that fits into the account of the subject. So it's not our purpose or our task to decide whether something has factually happened or not. The primary task is to paint the medical picture.
Thank you. Mrs. Princeton, anything from you on that topic?
This is Mrs. Princeton speaking.
Any question by the Specialist Prosecutor's Office? You have the floor to see if...
Your Honor, we don't have any questions for these witnesses. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Then I turn to the defense. Are you ready to proceed with the questioning of the expert?
Yes, almost. If I could have 15 minutes to prepare, because I heard very interesting things in this presentation, and it really could be nice.
Okay. Let me see how to proceed. We could also have, it's almost 12 o'clock, we could have a break till 1 and then we divide the afternoon. I will discuss with CMU how to organize the afternoon, maybe in 2 sessions or maybe in 1 session, depending on how things go. And then, yes. Yes?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Then we are in private session. Let's go back into public session first.
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you. So, Victims' Counsel has finalized for now its questioning of the 2 witnesses. The SPO has informed the panel that they don't have any questions for the 2 witnesses. And Defense Counsel has informed that it would need 15 minutes for preparation to proceed with cross. So what we will do is we will adjourn the hearing till 1 o'clock and then proceed this afternoon with the rest of the examination. And what I informed you about the agenda for the Defense Preparation Conference and one ruling and 1 question for the SPO. Very well. Then wish you good lunch and we adjourn till 1 o'clock.
All rise. All rise.
Please be seated. Welcome back. We resume the testimony of Ms. Prinsen and Ms. Lozano Parra. Let me see. I see a change in the composition of the SPO team.
Yes, Your Honors. Ms. Podvan will not be joining the team for this afternoon.
Thank you. Noted. I see that you're in the same composition. And on my left-hand side, the defense team, you are in the same composition, I see. And Mr. Shala is there. Very well. Before we continue with the testimony of the two witnesses, Defense Counsel, how much time do you estimate you will be needing for the examination, cross-examination?
So I think, including the answer, something around 1 hour. I think so.
Okay, yeah. Very well. For now, we foresee, thank you, Defense Counsel. For now, we foresee to sit from 1 till 2:30. Then we have half an hour break. And then we will continue from 3 to 4. I think that might suffice. And if not, I will liaise with CMU to see if we can finalize today. And if it's necessary, we go into tomorrow, of course. But for reasons of efficiency, I think it would be better to try to finalize today. Very well. Madam Court Clerk, could you please usher the witness in? Thank you. Welcome back, Ms. Prinsen. Welcome back, Ms. Lozano Parra. Can you hear me fine, Ms. Prinsen?
Yes, I can.
And Ms. Lozano Parra?
Yes, as well.
Very well. Mr. Shala, could you hear the interpretation? Yes, I see you nodding. Thank you.
Yes, I did.
I will now give the floor to the Defense Counsel for the further questioning of these witnesses. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ravana. So, good evening, Ms. Prinsen and Ms. Lozano Parra. Nice of you to be here. I'm the Mr. Shala legal counsel. I heard you in your presentation. It was very, very interesting. So I would like to ask you a couple of questions to try to understand and to be able not to commit a mistake. Thank you very much. So my very first question relates to the information that you had about the past and the person of the subject. So I would like to know, did you list all the documents you received by the victim's counsel in your report on page 3 to 4?
Defense Counsel.
Yeah.
You are asking the question to both of them, or?
Both of them, also the one you would like to answer. But they share the answering, so it depends of them, of her.
Now, I think that it's easier if there are more follow-up questions that you direct it to one of them, and then we can see if the other confirms instead of having them choose.
Okay, that's nice.
Yes.
That's nice.
This is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. Could you please repeat the first part of the question regarding to the information you were asking about?
Yes, you receive a lot of documents from the victims' counsel, and the question is, did you list all these documents in your report on the page 3, 2, 4?
Allow me a remark, defense counsel, and also for the expert witnesses. We are in public session, so I'm fully aware that you, I'm sure that you're fully aware of it, but I also want to emphasize it to the expert witnesses. We are in public session, so caution with regard to what you say or don't say. Please proceed.
Yes, this is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. In page 3 and 4, we listed all the documents we received. So this is, yeah, maybe you want to add something?
Yes, this is Mrs. Princeton speaking. We noted the documents that were relevant for our examination and for the questions that were asked, the 3 questions.
It was one of my questions, exactly. From the information you receive, there any elements you decided to not consider or to dismiss for the purpose of your examination of the subject? So we are talking exactly about what you were saying, and I would like to know the reason why.
Yes, I can answer that question.
Please state.
This is Mrs. Princeton speaking. It was a very elaborated. There were many documents, and there were also like small notes, just about things that happened. I don't even recall, but like small notes that were. The content was not related to the questions that were asked for us. So there were so many that we listed the documents we went through and that had information that might have been useful.
So thank you very much. I am a little bit surprised that there's a little information about the past Question is, I think, simple. Such element of the past and of the personality of the subject, could it be helpful to carry out your work? I don't talk about the conclusions. It's not the point. That's really these elements, this info, could have been useful for you or not.
This is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. I think what's important is that our whole goal and our information gathering is based on a medical examination in which we earlier explained we use all kinds of history from the subject next to our observations, the psychodiagnostic testing, and those are the basis of our medical examination, and then we use that for eventually coming to our conclusion. The information we get up front can be helpful in understanding the context, but more than that, it's not. So it's contextual information, which we then not use to, in conversation, not give back every aspect of that. That is not part of the medical examination.
But you asked some question about the past of the subject, and now did you consider you have a complete picture
his name is in the report, so we haven't written down that name. So.
Thank you very much, and I confirm that the name is not in the report. Thank you very much. So this is my last question, I think so, because it depends on your answer, of course. So to summarize, if I understood correctly, you are expert to discover how the subject is functioning and what he was suffering from. But as you said this morning, page 44 of the transcript, lines 13 and 14, not to know what factually happened. Is it correct?
This is Mrs. Princeton speaking. Well, I think it's a very, very short summarize of what our conclusions are. So, correct. I think it's really important to understand that it is a medical report, and the conclusions are based on our medical research. And I don't know the last sentence you read in which context this was said. Maybe you can clarify that, Your Honor?
The microphone is on, so if you speak, then we can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, this morning in the transcript, page 44, line 13 and 14, you declare it was Dr. Lozano Parra line 19 to 22. I read it. Our methods are preliminary focus on doing a medical assessment and seeing whether that fits into the account of the subject. So it's not our purpose or our task to decide whether something has factually happened or not.
This is Dr. Lozano Parra speaking. I agree with this, what is stated there. I think it's important to know that a medical examination, a medical legal examination, according to the Istanbul Protocol, can be used in legal proceedings as substantial evidence. So therefore, the medical conclusions can be used to in that procedure as substantial information. But again, the examination is not does not paint a picture of the facts. It paints a picture of the medical situation.
So thank you very much. This was my last question. Thank you, because it was very clear, very useful, first. And second, that the first time someone called me Your Honor. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Defense Counsel. Court Officer, could you bring us back into public session, please?
Your Honors, we are back in public session.
Thank you. Ms. Prinsen and Ms. Lozano Parra, we have finalized our first round, as to say, and I will now address again Victims' Counsel to see if he has any further questions.
No, thank you, Your Honour.
That was quick, Victims' Counsel. For the SPO, are there any questions? You have not put any questions up to now, but it could be that something raised in the meantime. Please. Yes, of course.
Thanks, Your Honor. We don't have any questions for the witnesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. Now, I won't ask the question here, of course. Very well. Yes, now, Ms. Prinsen and Mr. Lozano Parra, we have no questions from parties and Victims' Counsel. However, from the panel, there is a question from my colleague on my left-hand side, Judge BT. I will give him the floor for an additional question in order to gain some more clarity with regard to an earlier answer you have given to one of the colleagues here in the court. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Judge. I have indeed one question for both experts.
Very well, thank you. Madam Court Officer, could you bring us into private session, please?
Your Honors, we are now in private session.
Thank you. Ms. Lozano Parra or Ms. Prinsen, depending on who is going to answer, you have the floor.
Your Honor, this is Mrs. Prinsen speaking.
shown that I think my colleague explained as well that the attention someone has to focus on a certain incident narrows when your life is threatened. So there are certain details somebody can really clearly see and remember and recall later. And then there are certain details that are more vague. And the details we know from scientific research that are usually harder to recall are dates, so when things happened, but also when, so the time and date, and sometimes also who else was present in the room, those kind of things. So the memory in itself is not the most reliable thing, so that's a hard thing, especially in legal procedures. But then when something traumatizing happens, then the mind is also going in a survival mode and then just focuses on the one thing that's the most threatening. And for example, a gun or a sound or a smell that stays with the person.
And now with the microphone, can you bring us into public session, please?
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you. Very well. Ms. Brinson and Ms. Lozano Parro, we reached the end of your testimony, and I would like to thank you for the efforts you put in giving your testimony, and I believe it will assist the panel in our efforts to find the truth. So thank you very much. I remind you that you should not discuss anything we have been discussing in this courtroom with regard to your testimony with anybody else. Yes. And I will ask Madame Court Usher to usher you out. Thank you again. Thank you, Madam Court-Archer. Very well. What I propose is that we have a short break, 20 minutes, because then I will be reading the agenda, and we will be setting the dates and some oral orders. And I think it's good to have a break before that. Yes. So the hearing is adjourned till 10 minutes past 3:30. So in 20 minutes.
All rise.
2:30. Yeah, am I right? Yes. No? Yeah. No, 10 minutes, 20 minutes to 3. Let's put it like that.
All rise.
Please be seated. Welcome for this last part of the hearing of today. Yes, I see that the SPO has changed slightly its composition.
Yes, Your Honor. At this point, it's only Gaia Pergolo and Filippo De Minicis and Lina Pedersen for this prosecution.
Very well. The Victims' Council is in the same composition, and I see that the same goes for the defense team. Very well. The panel will now turn to the setting of the date and the agenda for the Defense Preparation Conference, and thereafter we will issue an oral ruling, as we announced this morning, and we have a request for the SPO. We decide to convene the Defense Preparation Conference on Thursday, 24th of August at 9:30. And in order to facilitate the preparation of the conference and to ensure its efficient conduct, we seek written submissions from the defense and the SPO and Victims' Council, but mainly from the defense, by Wednesday, 23rd of August at 12 o'clock. And we will mention the following agenda, on the following agenda items. The panel would like to know if the defense has finalized its investigations or if it anticipates carrying out further investigative activities. And in the affirmative, approximately how much time the defense will need to finalize these investigations. The second point the panel would like to know is, has the defense permitted the SPO and Victims' Council to inspect all tangible objects in the custody or control which are intended for use at trial? Yeah. And if that's not the case, what is the extent and type of the remaining material, and when the defense foresees that the inspection will be completed? The third point is, what is the order? And of course there will be an assessment of the panel with regard to the witnesses proposed, but what is the order in which the defense intends to call its witnesses, and which witnesses does the defense envisage to examine during the upcoming 6th and 7th evidentiary blocks? And that is from the 18th till the 22nd of September, as has already been decided, and from the 2nd to the 6th of October of this year. And the panel urges the defense to schedule its witnesses in a manner that maximize the use of the available courtroom time. And that means that to the extent possible, and foreseeable, of course, the courtroom days should not be left unused. But that's no different than how we proceeded with the SPO. Our first question for the defense is, when does the defense expect to be in a position to file applications under Rule 153, 154, and 155 of the rules? And furthermore, the panel would like to know if the defense could clarify whether it intends to file Rule 154 applications for witnesses 4454, witness 4405, witness 4441, witness 4280, witness 4440, and witness 3881. Or a final decision on this matter is yet to be made. And we also would like to know how many items are concerned for each witness. And the panel recalls that the defense was ordered to file any applications under the rules 153, 154, and 155 of the rules at the latest when filing its list of witnesses. And applications under Rule 154 of the rule shall in no case be made later than 30 days prior to the testimony of the witness concerned. And I refer you to the decision on the conduct of proceedings, filing 434 red, paragraphs 68 and 69. The panel's oral order of 16 June 2023. Transcript of hearing, page 2020, lines 7 till 10. And the decision on the defense request for an extension of time for the submission of his list of witnesses and exhibits. This is filing 591, paragraph 10. And therefore the defense should proceed with its applications as soon as possible, including adding justification for its late applications. Our fifth question relates to the moment the defense expects to be in a position to file its applications pursuant to Rule 121, paragraph 3 of the rules. And the sixth point is, does the defense intend to request protective measures for any of its proposed witnesses? And if so, what protective measures? And for which witnesses? The seventh point is, does the defense intend to request for witness 04 to be examined via video conference, or is a final decision on this matter yet to be made? And a follow-up question is if the defense envisage that it will request also other witnesses to be examined via video conference. And the panel would like to know when the defense will be in a position to file a request, if any. The panel recalls that requests under Rule 144 of the rules shall be made at the earliest opportunity and no later than 30 days before the witness's expected testimony. And I refer you to the decision on the conduct of proceedings, which is filing 434 red, paragraph 30. 8. Does the defense envisage that any of the witnesses will need to be examined away from the trial venue pursuant to Rule 145 of the rules? And 9th, does the defense envisage that any of its witnesses will need to be given assurances against self-incrimination pursuant to Rule 151, paragraph 3 of the rules? And the 10th point is, does the defense require an ex parte closed session next Thursday in order to address the panel on matters related to the presentation of its case? And if that is the case, what are the matters concerned you would like to discuss with the panel? And then the next point, very important, the panel observes that the defense has not disclosed any witness statements in relation to certain witnesses, including witness DB402, 03, 04, 05, and 06. The question of the panel is, has the defense taken any prior statements from these witnesses? Or does it have any notes of conversation with these witnesses regarding their foreseen testimony? And in the affirmative, the panel recalls that the defense has an obligation to disclose these statements. And we direct you to inform us if there are any, by when do you intend to do so? 12, the panel instructs the defense to provide an overview for each witness of their prior statements and related documents, and to indicate if, and in the affirmative, for which witnesses there are no prior statements, so that we have a good overview of what is available and not. And last, I mentioned for the record that on Friday, 18th of August, the defense was ordered via email to provide one-page summaries of the facts on which each witness is expected to testify, as set out in Rule 119, paragraph 2, under A, Roman 4 of the rules, and to do so by Wednesday, 23rd of August 2023. And Defense Counsel, it would assist the panel if you could provide us with courtesy copies of the summaries via email on a rolling basis. As soon as each summary or set of summaries is ready in advance of the 23rd August deadline. And we urge you to prioritize the summaries for the witnesses for whom you have not disclosed any statements, and to provide these summaries as soon as possible. And I hope you are in a position to do so in order also for the panel to proceed with its assessment in the upcoming days. And with regard to this last request, Defense Counsel, would you be in a position to do that on a rolling basis?
Yes, Your Honor, we will endeavor to do that.
Thank you. With respect to these questions and these points for the agenda, because following your submissions on Thursday, we will be discussing your submissions and seeing if there are still any questions left. Is everything clear to you?
Very clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I now turn to the Specialist Prosecutor's Office and to Victims' Counsel. The question for you would be is, do you intend to object to the admissibility of any of the non-oral evidence the defense intends to present at trial? And if so, what the nature of the objections would be? But that is for Wednesday. And this concludes the agenda for the Defense Preparation Conference, unless there are any additional remarks in this respect. Look at the SPO.
Your Honor, the only remark we're going to make was the deadline, the Wednesday deadline for the updated summaries vis-a-vis the scheduled conference for Thursday. But I think Your Honor has addressed that by requesting the defense start disclosing these summaries on a rolling basis. That would allow us to make meaningful submissions pursuant to Rule 119.3 if we receive the additional information in advance of the conference.
Yes. And I heard the defense saying loud and clear that they will endeavor to do that. Thank you. Victims' Counsel, is there something you would like to add?
No, nothing. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Very well. Madam Court Officer, could you bring us briefly into private session for the next oral ruling? And because we intend to give, if possible, oral orders with regard to the issues regarding the Defense Preparation Conference on Friday, we would like to ask the SPO if you would be in the possibility, if you would reply, to do that on Thursday, either orally or in writing, but so one day earlier.
Of course, Your Honor, we will reply will file any reply by Thursday if we
Okay.
define.
And you can also do it during the defense preparation conference or after the defense preparation conference orally if you would like to.
Yes,
So.
perhaps we'll reserve the decision after we receive the filing by the defense, but of course we'll keep that in mind as a possibility, Your Honor.
Yes, but they will be filing tomorrow their response. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, very well. Thank you for that. Yes. Now we can go back to public session. Madam Court Officer, can you bring us into public?
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
Thank you. If the parties and Victims' Council have anything to raise, no? Then we will resume on Thursday, 24th of August at 9:30 with the Defense Preparation Conference. Thank you very much for today's participation. The hearing is adjourned.
All rise.